Welcome to Green Building Matters, the original and most popular podcast focused on the green building movement. Your host is Charlie Cicchetti, one of the most credentialed experts in the green building industry and one of the few to be honored as a lead fellow. Each week, Charlie welcomes a green building professional from around the globe to share their war stories, career advice, and unique insight into how sustainability is shaping the built environment. So settle in, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and get ready to find out why green building matters.
Hi there. Welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. Once a week I get to interview a green building professional somewhere in the world. I've been doing that for over 4 years now, and we got some other things to keep me busy, but this is a highlight of my week. And today's special because this is a friend in industry, but also a client of ours. And I just can't wait to get into Vaishali's story. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Charlie. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, I know we've known each other for a while. I know you're based in Southern California, but you might even have some roots to Georgia where I'm at. So why don't we kick off there? Take us back to that origin story. Where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school?
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right about that. My roots grow deep in Georgia. I was born and raised in Atlanta and grew up there, went to school there, went to college at Georgia State University. I graduated a long time ago, back in 2007, in accounting and finance. So that was really where I started my career. That was my first job. I worked in the real estate industry for about 15 years, but I've worn a couple of different hats. So when I graduated from Georgia State, I moved to California. My dad lived out here. I loved it out here. Kind of everything that we could do, all the possibilities, just really intrigued me, attracted me. So I came out here as soon as I graduated. And I got my first job as a staff accountant in a commercial real estate company, not unlike Kilroy. And I was an accountant for a few years. I then transitioned over to property management. I think accounting, a great lucrative career, but just wasn't for me. It was a little too routine. I like being out and about and talking to people. I think that my team and my supervisor at the time really noticed that, and so helped me transition over to property management. And then did that for a few years. And it was during that time that I really realized that my passions lied somewhere else. I was really interested in doing something in the environmental world, not just as a hobby, but as a life career, as something that's a really big part of my life. And so I actually quit my job after a few years. I moved back home and started taking classes thinking I was going to be this marine biologist. I really loved the marine world. And, I became a scuba diver, and I just really connected with the marine world and really got to understand the plight of our oceans and on our marine life and what that meant to us and our planet. And so I was taking classes, and long story short, it didn't quite work out the way that, I wanted it to. But so I went back into real estate, looking for a real estate job. And as I was looking, I came across Kilroy Realty, and I was really attracted to their sustainability mission. This was, 9 years ago. So they were kind of one of the first companies in the industry who had a sustainability program. And so I really wanted to work for the company. So I came on board as a in property management. And I had this kind of secret mission that I would somehow obtain some kind of expertise in sustainability. I really wanted to work with the sustainability team and be a collaborator in some form or another. And as years went on, I kind of put the bug in their ear that if they ever had an opening, that I would love to join their team. And then sure enough, they did. And I became a sustainability manager full-time back in 2018. So it's been almost 4 years now that I've worked full-time as a sustainability professional.
And you've been patient. What an amazing story. So much there. And I'm curious if the accounting and the business side of it, because I can tell you like business, has helped even sell sustainability initiatives. And you probably understand and like the numbers still. And sometimes it still has to make good business sense. So that was probably just some good proper training to get you here. And for those that aren't as familiar with Kilroy, it's just known as one of the greenest portfolios of real estate here in the United States, and sets a pretty high bar. So really excited to see everything you've done there. And I know we're going to talk more about that. But it sounds like it was a slow aha for you. It sounded like you were going this route, and it's like, gosh, I need to I want to spend more time here, get some more schooling, and then, the environment but back into real estate. But at least you knew, gosh, it has to have a green focus. So any advice to anyone that's maybe going through that too?
Yeah. I think just don't be afraid to put yourself out there, right? I don't think anyone would have thought, property management over to sustainability. But I think when you are passionate about something, you have a goal and you're driven, there's always a way. There's a will, there's a way. And I think you shouldn't be afraid to express that, to tell the people around you, because you never know who's going to be there to help you out. Right. I remember specifically talking not only to the head of sustainability here, Sarah Neff, as I'm sure a lot of people know who she is. At the time, she was the head of sustainability at Kilroy, but also our HR person. And I said, hey, would love to be considered. And they listened to that and they got me to where I am today. So
you put yourself out there. I say that's one of my favorite quotes, where there's a will, there's a way. My mom's from Oregon. My dad's from New York. Somehow we ended up in Georgia. And she taught me that. So let's talk about mentors. Sometimes a mentor could be someone you look up to, but you don't really get to hang out with. Sometimes it's someone that opens a door and really does have some influence on you. Have there been a couple mentors as you put together your green building career?
Yeah, there's definitely been a few mentors in my life. This may be cliche, but my parents are a good mentor.
So let's hear more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. My parents could not be from two more opposite ends of the spectrum, but that's what I love about it is that, I have my mom's side who really taught me the value of appreciating the things that I have, not taking things for granted, and for taking care of those who may be less fortunate than you. And, my father, who is he's really an outgoing person. He's a real go-getter, very ambitious, very driven, just very confident person. And that's something that I feel like I have over the years learned from him. I wasn't born a confident person, but he's definitely kind of instilled those values in me over the years. So I would say that, they are my earliest mentors, obviously, being my parents. And then I think in this career specifically, I would say Sarah Neff actually was a good mentor for me because, I was with Kilroy Realty for several years before I joined her team. And, I got kind of lucky that I was working out of the same office as her in our headquarters space, just over the other side of the wall. So it gave us an opportunity to talk all the time. And she was kind of filling me in on what was going on in the sustainability world. She would ask me for advice about how to implement projects from the property management side. And she really kind of helped, I think, blossom that passion with me and help me to kind of go for it.
Those are some great mentors. And we've had Sarah on the podcast before. And I think she's also done a lot. And I see you doing this too for not just women in real estate, but women in sustainability, right? And I think that's just sometimes something we've got to really see others doing it. Hey, we can do this. We can spend more time there. And I've seen a lot of that. It's been amazing. Okay, so you connected the dots with the business case, the property management, sustainability. So kind of take us to current day and tell us kind of what's keeping you busy as the director of sustainability and corporate social responsibility at Kilroy. So tell us kind of what's going on today.
Yeah, well, as you and many people who might be listening in knows that we just got through a very long reporting season, annual sustainability report, GRES, DJSI, CDP. We've got Bloomberg coming down the pipeline now. So those reports always keep us busy for the first pretty half of the year. I would say what's keeping us busy now, we've got a lot of different types of projects going on, like water conservation. In California, water conservation has been at the forefront of some of the things that we really need to do. And it's becoming now mandated, right? It's no longer a voluntary thing. So we're having to be creative on how we can continue to save water, both from exterior usage and interior. So that's keeping us busy. But also, how do I frame this? I think we're kind of in a transition phase right now. So Kilroy, we've, as you said, we've been a leader in the space for a long time, been a pioneer. A lot of our peers are catching up with us, which is a great thing. But we, in order to stay leaders in this space, I think it's important to kind of expand our program a little bit more. And what I mean by that is, sustainability is no longer a nice to have. It's a must have, right? Especially with the SEC's ruling coming down the pipeline next year. It's kind of putting a rubber stamp on that. So, it's in order to be successful, we have to start, I guess, bringing in other kind of internal stakeholders into our strategy. So we're really working on making sustainability more than just a responsibility of my team, but getting our investment team involved, getting our property managers and our chief engineers involved more. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is having a really robust data management plan, shopping around for that, one that can give you that portfolio wide kind of bird's eye view of how we're performing, making sure that we're staying on track with our SBTs. Now that we're about 5 years in from establishing our science-based targets, it's time to review those, make sure that we're on track, maybe revise them as necessary. So I think that's really what's keeping us busy today, is just retooling, refining our program, making it more robust, and getting all of the important leadership decision makers in on the conversation.
Love it. And it's a lot of work. And, I know you communicate this externally, internally, but it sounds like you want everybody to make it even more part of the conversation and culture there. And that's amazing. So for those that aren't quite as familiar with Kilroy, could you explain? I mean, you own, sometimes you develop buildings up and down the West Coast primarily. I mean, can you talk a little more about some of your building types and your regions for those that want to learn a little more about Kilroy?
Sure. So Kilroy is an owner, operator, and developer of commercial assets. We have primarily office spaces and a really growing, budding life science sector as well. We are based out of Los Angeles, but we have presence in Seattle, Bellevue region, San Francisco, which is kind of our biggest footprint. Los Angeles, of course, and then San Diego, and then just as of last year, Austin, Texas. We are primarily office, life science, and we really cater to, our tenant base is mostly tech and media. So, and we've got about 15 million square feet of stabilized portfolio, another about 8 million or so in the development pipeline.
Thanks. It's a lot. It's a lot of buildings. I don't know how you keep track of it all. So let's look back one more time. What are some of your proudest accomplishments?
Yeah. So, I think from, I would say, a personal standpoint, I mentioned earlier that my mom kind of instilled this value of me to be in service to those who are less fortunate than you. So we really grew up doing a lot of community service. I was part of the Key Club in high school and college, and continue to do a lot of volunteering efforts. But when I moved out to California, I became friends with this group of guys, and they were running kind of sort of mom and pop nonprofit organization. And I joined the organization and brought it to 501c3 status. It was called Who Will, We Will. And kind of the premise of the name was, there's those who need help out there. Who will help us? We will you kind of thing. So the mission was that we would have fundraising events in Los Angeles that would bring awareness to different causes around the world. And we would partner with other boots on the ground organizations to help raise money for them. So we, did everything from, the International Bird Research and Rescue Center for rescuing birds during the Horizon oil spill in 2010 to a Cambodian orphanage. And then one of the sort of final events we did raise money to build 2 wells in Africa, and in conjunction with the charity Water. So that was something that I was really proud of from a personal standpoint. And then also back in 2020, I got my yoga teacher training during the pandemic. So 200-hour yoga teacher training. So that was a big accomplishment for me, wanting to do that for years. And that's another kind of big passion of mine. From a professional standpoint, I think it's manifesting this career. I think that's kind of my proudest achievement. I went from being in accounting and finance and really finding my passion, even though it was later in life. I found my passion and I was driven by it. And it led me to where I am today. And I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud that I'm doing what I love.
I'm excited for you, and I'm learning a little more about you. And you manifested this, and look at you now. So thank you for giving us a peek into your journey. I think it's amazing. You've worked on a lot of cool green building projects, healthy building projects. I know you can't pick just one, but is there a project that you really did enjoy working on?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's one particular project that I'm working on now. It's actually in Santa Monica. Development project. It's kind of near and dear to my heart for a couple of reasons. One is I live in Santa Monica. And so, connected to it in that way. The second one is when I was a property manager, I actually oversaw this building for several years. So I'm kind of connected to it in that way as well. And so we are currently in development and redevelopment of the project. So we're keeping the core and shell of the existing building, and then we're putting 2 new buildings on it. And it has a lot of bells and whistles when it comes to sustainability. It's, we have a goal of reducing our embodied carbon by 15%. I think we get actually higher than that by the time it's all said and done, with adaptive reuse and materials and all that. It's going to connect with the community. It's designed in a way to connect with the existing community, which is a food truck. There's this really vibrant food truck community there. And so it's going to be redesigned so that it's inclusive of that community and kind of props it up even more. It's just a beautiful building. It's just a beautiful design. I'm really excited to see what happens with it. We haven't broken ground yet, but we did go through, the architectural review board. They all loved it. So excited to see how that comes out.
Thanks. What a cool project. And I know with all of the programs we work in, it's more focused right on community and social. And I can tell you really love that part of that project too. So thanks for sharing. So what's next? I love to ask green building professionals like you, Vaishali, is, if you had a crystal ball, what are you reading up on now? What's next in this green building movement?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're all racing towards net zero. That's kind of the soup du jour, and obviously very important. But I think the next step is going to be then carbon positive, right? Carbon capture is kind of a technology. We're already looking into that now. Some people are already incorporating it through their materials. I've seen this really cool concrete that does that, but machines that suck methane right out of the air from the boilers, and it's really cool stuff. But I think that's going to be the next step with green buildings. Gosh, what else? I think that we're going to see the built environment. We're focused on reducing the negative impacts of the built environment, but it's going to be then how do we utilize our spaces to create a more positive impact? So in terms of supporting biodiversity, supporting equity, social equity, environmental equity, all of that, I think that's going to really be the focus.
Oh, that's really cool. You're right. We got to still fix some of the bad and the carbon and the emissions. And I mean, you're based in California, and you're having to do this faster than other parts of the country, right? So I know you've been doing it for a while, and still some work to do. But I love that over here is let's look at buildings and what can they do and what can they contribute, and don't forget about all the positive things that we can have coming up. So that's really cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you, just to get to know you a little bit better. What would you say is your specialty or gift?
Yeah, my specialty or gift is, I think I'm being an adaptable person. I'm adaptable to kind of any situation that I'm in. And that really helps me out because it helps me to be a team player, to be collaborative, and to be resourceful when I need to, right? You can't always pick the teams that you work with or the people you work with, but you learn how they operate and you learn to work with them, right? Without giving up your values or being a pushover, but you learn how to work with them in a way that everyone's happy. So I think being adaptable, and then, I think it also, being adaptable also supports my willingness to kind of find solutions to a problem.
So adaptability, do you think you've always been like that, or did it take a little while to get that as a skill set?
I think it takes some time, right? It comes with maturity. It comes with thinking beyond yourself and thinking about the people around you, about the situations around you, being open-minded and thinking kind of in more than one dimension or one-sided. I think it's just a maturity thing. It's something that you learn over time. And when you do learn to be adaptable, it really serves you in the end. I think it just makes things so much easier.
I love it. That is a gift. So how about good habits? Do you have any routines or rituals? What helps you stay on point?
Yeah. For me, it's really important to have a work-life balance, right? I am not a self-proclaimed workaholic. I do enjoy my job and I think it's important to get the work done, but I think it's also important to decompress and to do the things that you love. And so for me, part of my routine is making sure I get outside every day. So this could mean walking my dog, hiking, surfing, going for a run, just taking a walk on the beach, whatever it is. I like to connect with the environment every day. It recharges me, gets me ready to get back and do the things that I need to be successful. So
you're a great place to do all that. And now the yoga, you mentioned 200 hour, that's an amazing accomplishment. So is that part of a daily routine? How often do you practice yoga?
Yeah, I would say I do yoga probably 4-5 days a week. Even if it's like, sometimes it's just 20 minutes and sometimes it's a full class. Sometimes it's at home. Sometimes it's in a studio. But yeah, I try to get in some level of yoga every day.
Love it. There you go. Just a couple more questions here. I'm a fan of a bucket list. Are there one or two things you could share that may be on your bucket list?
I have a whole bucket list.
All right.
But I will just keep it to 2. I think one of the things, we have to go back to the roots of what I love. So the first thing is maybe diving the Great Barrier Reef. I've had an opportunity to dive some cool places, but I haven't been able to do that. And, I know that we're kind of slowly losing it and we may not have a lot of time left to visit. So would love to dive the Great Barrier Reef one day. And then the second thing is teaching a yoga retreat. I think that would be really cool to have. Maybe one day have my own sort of retreat center, but in the meantime, being able to teach other people my passion, what I love and get them to be passionate about it as well.
That's amazing. I'm curious, what else is on that bucket list? I'm sure that'll be not even a net zero, but a net positive wellness retreat center. And just love it. How about books? I'm not sure if you like to listen to books or hold a book in your hands, but, is there a book you'd recommend to the listeners?
Yeah, I like to read books. So right now I'm reading The 4 Agreements. I don't know if you've heard of this one. Really great book that has helped kind of guide me even further in my personal and professional life. And so I don't think I'm giving anything away here to tell you what those agreements are, but the first is be impeccable with your word. The second is don't take anything personally. Third is don't make assumptions. And finally, always do your best. And these 4 agreements have been serving me really well. I'm really enjoying the book. Haven't finished it yet, but getting close to it. And, I think if I had the opportunity, I would gift it to anyone and I would recommend anyone read it.
Fantastic recommendation. I'll put the links in the podcast show notes and the 4 agreements. What a good book. 2 questions as we start to wrap up. One is there any career advice you wish you'd have known earlier?
Yeah. I think, don't be afraid to speak up. I wish somebody had told me that. And I think even, as a female in the industry, we're even more apt to not speak up, or just an female in the work world. We're not really conditioned to do that. So, but we should be able to speak up, speak our mind, voice our thoughts and our opinions. Because I think if you don't, then you kind of miss a lot of opportunities, right? And for yourself, for the projects you're working on, you never know, like you may be wrong sometimes, but that's okay. Because many times you might be right, and so sometimes you'll come up with a really cool idea that no one else will think of. And so I wish somebody had told me that when I was younger. Ask a lot of questions. Always ask a lot of questions. No dumb questions. Don't feel like, you're the only one who thinks this and that maybe you don't just ask a lot of questions. And then last, and this is part of the agreements, is don't assume anything. And I think that is what it is,
Wow, a lot of wisdom there. And gosh, yeah. And I think part of it is not just hearing it, but hearing it from someone like you that, you've been doing this and you admit that you would have done it sooner if someone maybe told their story like you've told it today. All right, last question. Let's say someone's listening to this podcast and they're just now jumping into the green building movement. They've heard how you've got into this movement. What words of encouragement do you have for them?
Get out and meet as many people as you can. I have been blessed to be surrounded by an amazing community like yourself, Charlie, and so many others in the industry, joining organizations, here like USGBC and BOMA or whatever it is, a lot of different industry organizations. Get out there, network, find your tribe, learn from them, look at them as a resource, as a guide. I think that will really help anyone who's new to the industry build their confidence. Because I was like a deer in the headlights when I started, not knowing anything. And over the years, I think what helped me kind of build my confidence and learn more is just networking with people and making friends and finding that tribe who was willing to prop me up and bring me along.
What good advice. And if anyone really enjoyed this, connect with Vaishali on LinkedIn. Make sure you check out Kilroy. Make sure you read their, ESG report and just see what they're up to. Because I think a big part of this, and you said it at the beginning, is here's where we think we've done well. There's more work to do. Here's what we're going to work on next. And I appreciate your friendship. And thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Charlie. It was a pleasure.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At GBES.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode. And you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.